Hello, awesome entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 365, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/365. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you 10 questions that I recommend you ask before you buy an online course or membership. We're going to do a little vibe check to make sure it's the right fit for you and help you to discern between what is going to be really helpful and a good investment and something that may be a shiny object or a waste of your money. Let's dive on in. This is a big one. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Okay, so I actually shared these tips as part of a launch of my own program, Takeoff, a few months ago. Someone actually said, they were asking me questions about joining the Takeoff program. And as part of my answer, I was saying, make sure that you look out for that because I've bought a course before and they didn't say that or whatever it might be. And so she actually said, this would be a great podcast episode, Tash. Like all the things that we should look out for as like red flags when we're buying courses or what questions to ask to make sure we're buying something that's actually a good fit. And we understand the lay of the land when it comes to what we can expect inside that program. So I decided I would put it together and do it as a podcast episode. And I think you'll find this really helpful, even if you just ask the questions yourself. So you don't necessarily have to ask the course creator. You should be able to find most of this information yourself, but these are 10 great questions to ask yourself before jumping in and buying. And if you can't find the answer, then definitely reach out to the provider and ask the question. So first and foremost, I just want to say, before going into all these questions, you want to do a bit of a vibe check, right? You want to make sure if you are someone who really loves the lifestyle of having a business and you'd like to have a really calm, relaxed life, is their vibe aligned with the person who's selling and created the product, right? If you're someone who loves a lie-in and you're a romantic archetype and you're aligned with the sloth, right? And then this person talks about how they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they do XYZ before their kids get up and then blah, blah, blah. And they live this frantic, frenetic lifestyle. I would argue that it's important to pay attention to that and do a little vibe check around it, because chances are, regardless of what it is that you're going to be buying a course about from them, that the things that they recommend are going to work for someone like them. The things that they recommend are going to be things that they've tried or done or, what is in their wheelhouse. And so I always like to just do a little vibe check. I think about things like, do I see safe spaces for inclusion and diversity? Is this person talking about clients and customers as though they're human, or is it just treating it like numbers, right? So those things give me a little bit of a vibe check on whether we're aligned or not. But also in looking for the answers to these 10 questions, it's also a really good vibe check as well, right? So if you can't find the answers to the questions, you don't know what the refund policy is, you don't know what this is, you don't know what that is, then it tells you that things aren't particularly transparent here. Is that the vibe that you're looking for from someone that you're going to be buying something from? So that's just an overall kind of thing. Number 1, what will buying this and doing it achieve or solve? So sometimes we see something, and let's say it's a Facebook course, right? And so you think, well, I'm on Facebook and I want to grow my business on Facebook, so I should buy the Facebook course. But actually get really clear, what is it going to achieve? Is it going to achieve better organic reach on Facebook? Is it going to achieve making sales on Facebook? Is it going to achieve just having sexy content on Facebook that looks pretty, right? So what is it actually going to achieve? Or what problem is it going to solve? Because sometimes we just look at the bigger topic area rather than getting specific. So if you want to buy a Facebook program because you want to make more sales, well then if the Facebook program sales page is all about reach and engagement on Facebook and it doesn't actually talk about clients, or it says if you grow your reach, you magically get more clients, then to me, it actually is not solving the thing that you need to solve. So be clear. Are you clear on what will this achieve or what will it solve? Or am I just doing it because I want to stay busy? Or am I just doing it because I think I need another qualification? Does that actually achieve anything? What is your ultimate goal that you're trying to achieve here? Well, I want to get more clients. So what are your sales skills like? Oh, I have no sales skills. Okay, so why are you now buying another qualification? Or why are you now buying a course on graphic design, right? If you have a problem because you don't have sales, then buy a course that's going to help you make sales. And you don't learn how to make sales by learning how to reach people. You learn sales skills. So what will this achieve or solve? And are you on the same page as the provider about what you need? Number 2 is what is needed from me and this course in order to achieve that outcome, in order to solve that, right? So some courses, like it says you're going to have your first 6-figure year, but in the fine print, in order to achieve that 6-figure year, you need to run 12 webinars in the year, spend $500 a month on Facebook ads, blah, 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 right? And they've got all these things that you need to do. You need to have a team of 6. You need to invest in this. You need to hire a copywriter. And so it's not just the course that you need in order to achieve the outcome. You need the course and this and that. And so it's important that you're really clear on what is needed in order to achieve it. And so it might also mean that like a certain level baseline understanding of something is needed in order for you to achieve those outcomes. So I once bought a program and I said to the person, like, I am focused on organic strategies on social media. And so I really want to buy your program so that I can add paid social media strategies, but also really improve the effectiveness of my content. And so the person's like, yeah, this will fix it. This is great. This is amazing. What they didn't tell me was that in order to get the information that I needed from my numbers, I needed to have been reaching 10,000 people per month on Facebook. I didn't meet the minimum standard. Because I'd mostly been focused on organic strategies, my reach on Facebook was, I wasn't spending $1,000 and reaching 40,000 people and then refining down. I was reaching a very small but very engaged audience, and I was making good sales with that very small, very hot, very engaged audience. I didn't have big numbers and data to filter through to answer some of the questions they were asking. So in order to achieve the outcome, I needed to have already been doing some things that I hadn't done. So what is actually needed to achieve it? And again, are you on the same page as the person selling you the course? Number 3, how much time will it take? Now this is in 2 layers. One is how much time will it take linearly? So if I was to engage and do the modules once a week or whatever it might be, how long till I got the outcome? Additionally, how many hours a week is this going to take me? How many hours is there in each module? How much time do I need between consuming the information and actually implementation, right? So I say when people join the Takeoff program, for every hour of modules you watch, there's 4 hours of implementing. Now, the things we focus on implementing are getting you sales and reach and audience growth and making money, right? So for a lot of people, the thing they're most surprised about when they join the Takeoff program is all the things I tell them not to worry about doing for now, all the things to stop wasting their times doing. So yes, there's an hour of consuming module and then 4 hours to implement in your business, but that's your business as usual stuff that you're doing. And so in a lot of cases, it saves people time. So I'm able to speak about that when people are inquiring about the Takeoff program and, what the time expectation might be. Number 4, is the process reasonably linked to creating the result? Now, the reason why I talk about this is because there's a lot of promises for courses and memberships that I feel like it's a really long bow to draw. So for example, having a course on if you want to up level your income to over $20,000 a month, then what you need to do is come and do my 6-week money mindset course. And it steps what the 6 steps are. And I'll be like, I do 3 out of those 6 steps already. Am I really going to see huge return on investment in my business by only doing these 3 mindset steps, right? So you need to be clear on like, does the solution actually reasonably set you up to achieve the outcome? Because I know for me, if I really want to significantly improve my income, specifically in my business, well, I need a combination of mindset and strategy focus, right? It's not just about, that one little limiting belief and now I've magically attracted hundreds and hundreds more clients, right? I need to show up as well. And so this can come up a lot, especially with the business growth thing, right? Because anyone who's teaching something in business or marketing, those sorts of things, they will often not promise that you'll have a 5-figure month or certain amounts, but the examples they have in the testimonials give that idea. So they'll have testimonials that say, just 6 weeks into the program, I had a $30,000 month, right? And so you think, wow, I can have a $30,000 month in 6 weeks? No, that's not true. That's not what they said, right? Because you don't know what factors went into it. How much marketing budget did they have? How big was their audience to begin with? What other factors were at play? Do they work full-time in their business? Do they work part-time in their business? There's so many variables. So we want to ensure that when we're buying the program, there's clarity about the process we're going to follow. And my logical brain can see that it's reasonable to expect that if I do that and that and that and that, then yes, I'm going to be likely to achieve a significant improvement in my results, or, I'm likely to achieve that monetary figure that I've got in mind as my goal. So is that process that they are teaching in that program reasonably linked to getting the result that they are saying is happening for their clients in their program, and that we therefore are thinking will be possible for ourselves? Question number 5 is, how long do I have access to the materials and any live components? So some courses, you get access to the materials forever, but there's only 6 live calls over 6 weeks, and you're in the Facebook group for that 6 weeks, and then it's done. You're out. Some courses you get to stay in the Facebook group forever, but you can't come to future live calls unless you reinvest, or you get to stay in the group until the next round begins, but if you don't reinvest in the next round, you're out, right? So just asking those questions and being clear on how long you have access for, because a lot of the time it says lifetime access to the program, but actually it's just lifetime access to these versions of the videos. And when they update the program in 3 years' time, you don't get the updated version. You have lifetime access to your version only. So, and I'm not saying that you have to have lifetime access to everything, or you have to have ongoing calls, or whatever it might be, but just make sure you understand and you know exactly what that is. Do I have ongoing access to the materials? Do I have to, some courses I've bought and they say lifetime access to the materials, but in order to keep that lifetime access, you have to know how to download and extract video content from YouTube. And I didn't know you had to have plugins and and so they sent me an email to say, okay, you've just got 48 hours left with your access in the platform. So if you want to you can keep the materials for life. If you want to, make sure you go and download them. And I spend 4 hours trying to work out how to download these materials, not realizing that there was a bunch of stuff that I need to know how to do. So how long do you have access? What form does that take? How long do you have access to all of the different components? And just being clear that you know what to expect in all of those spaces. There's nothing worse than thinking, you've fallen a bit behind in a course and you think, it's okay, I've got lifetime access, I'll catch up in the next couple of weeks, and then finding out, nope, there's no more live calls for you, you're out. You can't stay in the Facebook group, you're out. You haven't done it by now, too bad. Particularly for those of us who have life that can get in the way, whether that be your well-being, or whether that be responsibilities, or whether that be capacity in terms of time, and you've got a day job or whatever it might be. For me, it's just, I don't work more than 15 to 20 hours a week at this point in time. And so if that's my restriction, I have really good boundaries around that. So I think that being really clear on the access that you have is important, particularly if you don't know whether it requires you to string together 6 perfect weeks with no life dramas. And that leads me to question number 6, which is, what if life gets messy? So we join programs and memberships with all intentions of being a straight A student and being diligent and making sure that we get everything done and having, being the squeaky wheel and all those sorts of things. But sometimes something happens and you can't be as present with that program, or something happens and you fall behind. What happens then? What is the provider's response to that? Are there any safety nets if that happens for you? What do you need to be aware of if you do buy that program? So, and sometimes life cannot get messy if I'm joining something, and I need to take accountability for that. Okay, well, if life gets messy, I know that I'm taking that risk. I generally don't invest as much in things that have that risk. It takes a bit of the value proposition off for me as someone who needs flexibility for a range of different reasons. And so that means I'm less likely to finish. Therefore, I'm less going to see that as less valuable. So therefore, I'm less willing to invest in that. So just being really clear on, well, what is the approach if life gets messy? So I'll give you an example from the Takeoff program. We have people join the Takeoff program. They want to build an online business. They want to get consistent clients, and then they fall pregnant. And they don't want to leave their day job because that gets them maternity leave. So they can just not do the Takeoff program for a while, have their kids, get onto mat leave, and then come back to the process, because Takeoff is lifetime access to everything. So as long as the program exists, they get access to the most up-to-date modules, all of the workbooks, all of the calls, all the Facebook group, all the bonuses, everything. And if I ever decide to close the Takeoff program, I guarantee to give a year of warning. So people will always have at least a year until any time that I decide to close the Takeoff program. So because of that, it means that life can get messy. Other things that we do is we have pods, which are little clusters of people doing the program together. So that if life gets messy and you fall off, someone's going to notice and they're going to remind you to come and re-engage. We also have a 30-day money-back guarantee, because sometimes you join with all the great intentions and then something comes up really quickly and you need straight out. You're like, nope, not for me. Well, we've got 30 days of that in the Takeoff program. We also, in the Takeoff program, have those live calls twice a month, every month, and you get access to them ongoing. So if life gets messy and something happens, and let's say you have to take a break from starting a business for a few months, you can just get clear on, well, what's the next call I'm going to go to, and just go and show up to that call and say, hey, Tash, I'm back. I'd take a step away. Right, I'm back into it. And so it's like that no one gets left behind if life gets messy. So the program is created with the people in mind who are my ideal clients, who are the most likely to have to drop the ball on things when things get messy. Patriarchy. Anyway, so number 6, what if life gets messy? What would be the plan? Is there an option for you to get a refund? Is there an option for you to join another round? Something along those lines, if it's like live round orientated. Number 7, how are questions submitted and answered in the program? So if it does have like Q&A or a Facebook group or a chat forum or whatever it is, being clear on, well, how does that work? And does that work for you as a student? So I've been in programs before where the only way you can submit questions is you fill in a form, but questions are answered on a live call once a month, and you just have to watch the whole live call for an hour and a half to see if your question was asked and answered on that call. That is not an effective use of my time. That doesn't work for me. So if I'm going to buy a program that has the opportunity for me to ask questions, I need to be able to ask them in a group and get answers in writing straight away, or need to be able to submit them via email, or I need to be able to ask them under the module and know that I'm going to get an answer pretty quickly. And so like just knowing, well, what are the ways that I can submit questions and how are they then answered, so that you're really clear on like what time that's going to take up and whether that works for your learning style and your feedback loop style as well. Are there any live calls and how do they work? So a lot of people who do the Takeoff program or my Leverage and Launch program, it was their first course that they bought. and they don't realize that not everyone hosts live calls the same way that I do. So a lot of courses, the live calls are hosted like a Facebook Live or a webinar, where the only way that you can ask questions is in writing, and not everyone gets their questions answered, or everyone does get their questions answered, but it's not thorough because you have to be able to word your question really well. Whereas in the Takeoff program, we do hot seat coaching, because those types of question and answers in writing, we do in the group. And I am in there most days answering those straight away. So don't wait for answers to those questions. Get those straight away in the group. The questions that we talk about and the coaching and mentoring we do on the calls is actually the more complex stuff that can't be done back and forth in writing. And so understanding, like, are there live calls, but also just asking the question or seeing if there's some information about, well, how do those live calls actually work? I was in another program where the day before the live call, you had to apply to be one of the people who went in the hot seats, and about 6 people were selected. I didn't know that the program had over 1,500 students. And so the odds of having your questions selected and answered were very low. The odds of you being in the hot seat were very low. And so you just had to rely on someone else is going to ask that question. So, or, I'm going to find the answer somehow. So are there live calls? How many of those live calls do I get access to? How long do I get to keep coming back to the calls? And how do those calls work? Number 9, who runs the calls and answers the questions? And I did not know that you would have to ask this question until I joined a membership just a couple of years ago. And I bought it because it was an author I loved. It was her membership. She ran all the sales processes. All the emails looked like they were from her. She had recorded some modules in there. So like it was her work. But actually, when I joined the program, it wasn't until my 3rd month in that I realized I'd only seen her in the Facebook group twice in all of those months, like 2 responses specifically from her. And she didn't run any of the live calls. It was her team. So she had a mindset person doing the mindset calls. She had a strategy person doing strategy calls. She had a copywriting person doing copy sessions. She had a VA doing tech sessions. But she wasn't actually there. She had pre-recorded 12 of the modules and she was the salesperson, but she did not answer questions in the Facebook group much at all. Like, it was very rare. She was not like, so for me, I was like, well, I'll just watch the 12 modules. Then that's the value of this membership done for me, because I'm not here to learn from her copywriter friend. I was here to learn from her. So just being clear, sometimes it's unclear and it's a bit foggy and you don't realize that the calls are actually not run by the person who sold it to you. The Q&As are not facilitated by the person that sold it to you. The question, when you ask questions in the Facebook group, it's not that person answering, it's their team. And then number 10 is, are their policies and their approach aligned with you from a values and integrity perspective? So what I mean by that is there transparent refund policies? Whenever there's a Facebook group that goes with an online course, you can actually go and search and see if you can find that Facebook group. You won't be able to get into it, but you'll be able to see the group rules and guidelines, because those are generally publicly visible. And so, do those group rules and guidelines show that this is an inclusive space and it's well moderated? Or is it a hellfire, free-for-all, you're on your own, we do not get involved in your arguments, right? That, to me, says a lot about the level of commitment that person has to inclusion and diversity, as well as the level of space holding that happens in that community as well. So, is the program accessible to people who need those accessibility workarounds? Is there an alignment in terms of understanding that there are different learning styles? Or does this person expect you to show up and learn in the exact same way as everyone else? Does the person acknowledge neurodivergent learning styles, adult learning styles, different learning modalities and methods that people find more effective? Does the person have a refund policy that allows you to get a refund for change of mind, or does the refund window require you to do so much hoop jumping and so much work that no one will ever get a refund, and actually there is no refund policy? It was just a way of creating a sense of reassurance and false security. So I also pay attention to how people sell to me. So one of the things I recommend before you buy a course or a membership is sign up to a couple of freebies from that person and go to one of their classes and just pay attention to how you're treated. Are you spammed? Are you spoken down to? Are you treated like a human? Do you get transparent answers to your questions? Do you feel like you are just being, like your fear is and your pain points are just being dialed up, but there's no tangible support provided unless you pay, or tangible information or advice or anything unless you pay and join the program? Like that everything's a secret behind the paywall, and they're not actually giving you any concrete information or insight that can help you make an informed decision. Are they getting you to buy because of fake scarcity or that fear-based messaging? Are they trying to give you, use toxic and abusive marketing strategies on you? If they are, like for me, that's far more important than the lofty promises they make on their sales page and the lofty outcomes that their top 5 students have achieved. Because that to me speaks volumes about the integrity of that salesperson. And if they're willing to be out of integrity or treat people poorly there, well then why wouldn't I then be worried that they would be happy to overpromise and underdeliver, for example, or use fake testimonials from their besties instead of real student testimonials who've actually done the program? So for me, like the vibe check / alignment of our approaches and their policies is one of the most critical decision-making tools for whether I'm going to join a program or not. And for me, I think that also really helps me to be very discerning as a buyer. And it's actually meant that I've wasted far less time buying things that didn't work for me, or buying things that required me to be neurotypical in order to succeed, or required me to get up at 5 a.m. in order to get results. And I ain't going to do that. That's just not me. So pay attention to the way that you're sold to, pay attention to the way that the most marginalized people in that person's community are treated, and pay attention to the policies and the way that that person speaks about refunds and inclusion and their audience and their buyers as well. So I once reached out to a course seller and just said, I just wanted to double check because the refund, you says no questions asked refund, but then when I click on the refund terms and conditions, it says I have to show my work. So I was just wondering if you could tell me like what is the work that I need to show if I was going to need to access a refund. And the person replied and said, well, I can already tell that you're not going to be a great student for this program because you're already planning your exit and you're not committing fully. So unless you're willing to commit fully, right? They're totally manipulating me into accepting vagueness in their refund window through trying to prove myself as being driven and a good learner. And so I didn't buy, and I told them why. But I think that's real. It's really important to me to pay attention to that stuff. And like, imagine if I hadn't asked that question and I hadn't realized that, then I'm going to get into the program, and every time I bring a problem to the table, I'm going to be told, oh, it's because you're not coachable, or you're not hungry enough, or you don't want it hard enough. That's that person's response to everything. And so, of course, I wasn't going to get the result anyway. So it's really saved me the time, money, and heartache of trying it and it not working and feeling like I need to blame myself. Oh, that was my mistake. I did that again, right? How many of us blame ourselves because we've bought things and it didn't work for us, but we blame ourselves because we didn't have the perfect combination of time, energy, space, and health for 12 weeks in a row, and no kids getting sick or whatever it might be. Or we blame ourselves because, I just wasn't willing to put in the work. Or we blame ourselves because, I just didn't realize I had to be so pushy and I didn't want to do those 17 emails, so it didn't work for me, but I can see why it would work for others, right? How many of us are in that space and we're not actually being, confident in our own skin to say, no, the reason that course didn't get me the outcomes was because that course was not built for me. The reason that course didn't get me the outcomes is because that course was poorly designed and delivered. And, I think so many of us end up blaming ourselves when these things don't work. But when we ask these really good discerning questions before we invest, we can avoid that situation and recognize that we're going to be more likely to succeed if we are more discerning in the programs that we buy and all the layers that we look at before we invest as well. So, following up from all of that, if you are looking to invest in something at the moment, or you've been thinking about buying a course, or you're worried about whether that's the right fit for you or whatever it might be, I have a special invitation for you today, and that is I want you to DM me. So you can DM me on Instagram or Facebook. We'll put the links in the show notes of today's episode. But I am happy to go and look at the program for you if I'm not familiar with it. I'm happy to let you know if I am familiar with the product or the provider. I'm happy to help you to check in on whether that is going to meet the needs that you have in your business right now or whatever it is that you're working on. And also I'm willing to let you know if I'm like, it looks a bit dodgy to me. I don't know. I would ask these questions to follow up because I don't know if that's a good use of your time. I also know a lot of trusted providers in a lot of different fields. So if I think that there is someone else who may also be a great fit for you, I can also let you know as well. So that is a free pass for you. If you've listened to episode number 365, slide into my DMs and say, hey Tash, listen to episode 365. I've been looking at buying this course. I'd love to know, do you have any thoughts on that? Are there any questions you think I should think of? Here's where I'm at in my business, or here's what I'm wanting to get out of it. Do you think it's going to deliver? I am very good at discerning buying these things these days. And also, as I said, I do know a lot of different providers. So I can help point you in the right direction, help you feel reassured about that purchase. No guarantees, of course, but if all signs are pointing to it going to be great, I'll let you know that because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. And until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.